All right, a new Grandmaster Nightfall this week, and I know not all of you want to do Grandmaster content, but if you like me and you're constantly broke when it comes to Ascendant Shards and other materials, or you just want better randomly rolled exotics, then this really is the best way to farm for that. Broodhold is the Grandmaster Nightfall for this week, and I gotta say, guys, I've been doing Grandmaster Nightfalls completely wrong. Well, not completely wrong, but essentially, today was the first time I really took advantage and used Revenant Hunter myself. Normally, I would just play Titan, use Ursa Furiosa, be the guy tanking, and that would be like the extent of my job. This week though, you really don't need Ursa Furiosa. There's a lot more movement going on, and I found that the Revenant class with Bakris was by far the most lethal thing inside of PvE. That in combination with Anarchy is disgusting. So forget everything we've ever talked about previously in other Grandmaster Nightfall guides. Like, those things are still good. They can still get you through a Nightfall, but I'm starting to think that 3 Mask of Bakris with Anarchies on the Revenant subclass will absolutely wreck this Nightfall. Now, let's go through a couple of things on what we're utilizing. First up, in the Revenant subclass, by far my favorite things to rock is Whisper of Bonds. It does drop your intellect by -10 and your discipline, but defeating frozen targets with weapons grants you super energy. Extremely nice, especially when we pair it here with Dust-Filled Grenades. Constantly freezing targets, whether you're freezing them or your friends are freezing them, Whisper of Bonds will be taking effect. Now, next to it, we have Whisper of Hedrons. Gain a bonus to weapon damage after freezing a target with stasis. This is really nice, especially for this Nightfall, because you are moving a lot. Like, really, a Well of Radiance was nice as like an insurance policy, just in case we needed to drop it and get some heals. But for the most part, you are not stationary much at all in this Nightfall. So having anything here that can buff your damage, such as Hedrons, is extremely beneficial. Now, speaking of like mobile buffs to our damage, like we always do, guys, Radiant Light, Powerful Friends, High Energy Fire, these mods in combination with stacks on stacks to get multiple stacks of charges with light. I'm even rocking something like Taking Charge, considering we're spitting out so many orbs. All of these things are cycling charges of light back and forth to my teammates, thus allowing us to get that high energy buff. Now, the weapons of choice for this week, champion-wise, you only have to deal with barrier champions and unstoppable. And I would actually recommend having 2 folks rock anti-barrier weapons and only 1 person rock unstoppable rounds. Now, like we've mentioned in the past, when breaking barrier shields, I cannot stress how good Disruption Break is on an anti-barrier weapon. This allows increased damage from your kinetic weapon. Extremely nice, especially if you're pairing this with something like Eye of Soul here. This is my Eye of Soul with Vorpal weapon. That stacks with Disruption Break and the buff you receive, increasing that damage even more to champions. So load up Destiny Item Manager, dig through your vault, try to find yourself a weapon with Disruption Break that you can apply anti-barrier rounds to. And for this week's Nightfall, I would suggest a pulse rifle over an SMG, considering there is a lot more distance here between you and your enemies, especially when you get into like that underground cavern area. You're going to want to keep your distance from your enemies. Speaking of which, let's talk about modifiers. This week for this Grandmaster Nightfall, pretty straightforward. Fire Pit is back again. Acolyte spawn fire pools that cost damage over time. Be very careful. If you suddenly realize you're on fire, just run. Stop, drop, and roll, baby. We also have match gain. And for the most part, you only need to have arc damage and solar damage. Those are the only 2 shields, at least that I can remember off the top of my head, that we were running into. Champions mob is also another modifier for this week, so you will have increased champions, as well as a non's chorus. And I hope I'm saying that right, but essentially incoming void and environmental damage. Now, I would still suggest when it comes to your resist mods to have sniper damage resistance as well as concussive dampener on. I know a lot of people like to rock reserve perks, but these things will keep you alive. Sniper damage resist is really nice, especially in the beginning parts of this Nightfall, because you have fallen vandals that will insta kill you. This single mod will allow you to tank a shot. And considering so much is spitting fireballs and other things and boomers and all kinds of stuff, concussive dampener helps keep you alive from that AoE damage. Now, the combination of Bakris and Anarchy cannot be overlooked. It is disgusting. Essentially, Mask of Bakris comes with the perk Light Shift, which allows us to replace our dodge with a faster moving shift. But the biggest benefits is after shifting, your arc weapons deal increased damage to combatants for a short time, and you deal increased damage to all slowed or encased combatants. That last part is key, and I'm still trying to perfect it myself, but essentially, whether you're slowing combatants with your Dust-Filled Grenades or your Stasis Shurikens, whatever the case, that stacks with Bakris's damage when you shift. This is all just stacking on more and more damage, and for for a Nightfall like this where everything is so spread out, you can't go wrong with this setup. Matter of fact, I really do think that even though it was nice having a Well of Radiance, 3 Mask of Bakris, 3 Anarchies, everyone rocking snipers, 2 anti-barrier weapons, 1 unstoppable weapon would absolutely wreck this Grandmaster Nightfall in 15 minutes or less, by the way. Now, let's talk about the Nightfall itself. This is a slow and steady Nightfall despite everything being spread out, meaning you want to be very methodical about moving up and taking on targets. Positioning is everything. Where you place yourself can suddenly put you completely under fire by everything around you. So the live gameplay you're seeing in front of you, feel free to follow these strategies. Follow exactly where we're placing things, when we're popping our supers. And that's probably the only thing I think I would have changed was using my super more. There was a lot of times I was like hanging on to my super a little bit when there was really no need to. It's such a good super because it freezes everything and continually does damage and just cycles around the map. Even if it's just trash ads, pop your super. You're gonna proc charges of light, giving your teammates a buff as well as yourself. And since you're rocking the bonds fragment, you'll have your super back in no time. Now, this underground cavern, before you actually engage with the Broodhold Queen herself, I would suggest, keeping your distance here, taking everything out and going up to that top area first and work this room clockwise. Now, you'll notice the worms out there. You could immediately put those in if you want. We actually found it better to just clear all the ads first and then proceed to pick up the worm and put them all in at the same time. That way you won't be overwhelmed with ads throughout the process, because I think every time you put in a worm, a new refresh of ads comes. But if you put all 3 in at the same time, I felt like we bypassed a number of ads. It just felt like overall there were less ads that we had to deal with. Now, the Queen does have like an insta kill. You'll see it like charge up. It's that solar flare, which is why you see us hiding behind columns. Anarchy is so beneficial here because essentially placing 2 Anarchy shots, Bakris dodge, get the increased damage for your arc weapons, maybe even get a freeze off or a slow on her. You could sit there behind cover and still do substantial amounts of damage. She'll then retreat, and this takes us to the next area, which is probably the slowest area. This area right here, from start to finish, before you go into the boss room itself, you'll have to deal with a number of unstoppables and barriers. I would suggest taking each one of them on one at a time, being very methodical here, keeping your range, keeping your distance. This is exactly why we're using sniper rifles. And again, any pulse rifle with anti-barrier rounds and disruption break is S tier. And if you don't have stars, I would actually suggest looking through your vault. You might even have like a GN7, which that weapon 2 rolls with disruption break. Now, the bridge area itself, dude, a single Revenant super just kills everything that's trying to come up this bridge. Pop 1, it'll consistently keep freezing. And I would suggest whoever it is that's rocking unstoppable rounds, let those unstoppable champions come together, and you can literally like stun each one of them back to back right next to each other. That way our Bakris hunters get hit pretty much both of those targets with Anarchy at the same time, simultaneously getting freeze off with Dustful grenades or whatever other method. But let those ogres come together. It makes it a lot easier to deal with them both together on that bridge versus each one of them spread apart from each other. Which takes us to the boss room itself. Honestly, this is the easiest room. You have 1 barrier champion that you're gonna have to deal with at the very beginning. But the beautiful thing about this room is that you can insta-melt the boss, and even though champions do spawn in this room, you'll still get platinum even if you don't kill them. Matter of fact, you don't even have to do damage to them. There was one phase where we did damage one of the champions, but the other one we didn't even touch, and it still gave us platinum. So it appears that when you kill the boss, champions in the rooms despawn, and the game thinks you platinum this Nightfall, thus giving you the full rewards. Previously, in other Nightfalls, I was under the impression you had to kill every champion, and if not every champion, you at least had to do some damage to them in order to get the full platinum. Not this one. No, you can literally just melt the Brood Queen instantly, and she is not a meaty boss at all. Like, in comparison to other Grandmaster Nightfall bosses, she is by far the squishiest. Like, Omnigo last week was way beefier and way tankier than Broodhold. Now, granted, we are combining a bunch of different things, Bakris, Anarchy, slowing her down as well, but essentially what you're seeing in front of you is just a combination of 2 hunters, and would probably be even nastier with 3 hunters. But this is like an easy 15-minute run, and I honestly think we could have trimmed off a little more time. So guys, that is your Grandmaster Nightfall for this week. Give it a go, man. If you're looking to speedrun this, no, it's not double loot, but it's still good loot. So guys, give it a go. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.